Great. Thank you very much. We're now going to begin our live Q&A. I will be asking, I'll be asking questions as I had previously stated, as well as the audience. We first want to explain to everyone how this works. We don't take questions directly from the chat. Instead, we ask everyone to virtually raise their hand. If you're not familiar with how to do this, what you want to do is click on the reactions button, second from the right at the bottom of the Zoom window. Then you're going to click on the raise hand function in the menu that pops up. We will then take questions in the order in which they are received. When it's your turn, I will unmute you and ask you to state where you're from and to ask your question. We ask that everyone keep their questions brief and on topic. We will then mute you. If you wish to ask a follow-up question, you will need to raise your hand and get on the back of the line. So, and if we have time, we'll take you. So what I want to ask you a question, Brian. So Dr. Cousin had some thoughts on cholesterol, saturated fats, overall fats, and salt. And I want to get your comments on that, but in order for you to know exactly what he said, we're just going to play a quick video of that. So that way you can respond to what he says in the video.
And a high carbohydrate diet. So when Joe Furman talks about, well, he sees a lot of people with vegans with brain, degeneration, I look at the high carbohydrate diet, which I don't support because it stimulates brain inflammatory pathways. Now, to me, this is a really important study, Journal of Alzheimer's 2012. I'm just going to read it because it's so important. Older people, and we're talking people above 60, eating a high carbohydrate diet. Get the word high carbohydrate because we're told a lot in the vegan world that you want a high complex carbohydrate diet. People are talking about 70% carbohydrate. Yeah, well, here's the result. Have nearly 4 times the risk of developing mild cognitive impairment. So this is what David Perlmutter in his book, Grain Brain, I thought he did really good work. A diet heavy in inflammatory carbohydrates, which mostly they are, low in healthy fats, messes with the mind in more ways than one. But let's say messes with the brain in more ways than one. So fat is the preferred fuel of human metabolism, and it's been that way through evolution until we started farming about 10,000 years ago. Next slide, please. Now, this is really important because along with this high complex carbohydrate diet, we just have this cholesterol fear. And this is one of the second reasons I think that vegans tend to get more Alzheimer's, because people with the highest cholesterol scored higher on cognitive tests than those with lower cholesterol levels. So I'm really talking more about cholesterol here, but Netherlands, Alzheimer's have lower amounts of cholesterol, free fatty acids in their cerebrospinal fluid. That is really important. As 2007 study showed that people who regularly consumed omega-3, this is one of the supplements I'm going to talk about, they were 60% less likely to develop dementia than those who didn't regularly consume such oils. That's DHA and EPA. High cholesterol is associated with better memory function. And it's the preferred fuel for your heart. I mentioned so atrial fibrillation, high omega-3, 85% lower risk of dying from all causes.
But what I appreciate about Dr. Cousins is a lot of my other colleagues talk about evidence-based. He is, and we are evidence-based. And the advantage that we basically have at this institute is we do clinical work on every one of the guests that come here. So we're observing exactly what Boston University and Harvard and others were just expressing in the research study that they published. So here's what we have to understand. So you're not thinking that Dr. Cousins said you have to go out and eat tons of this stuff. if you look at all plants, and especially original plants, when I was in Israel, as an example, I was at the Center for Science, which is outside of Tel Aviv. And here on the wall, they had the original wheat. Didn't even look like wheat. It was about a third of the size. It was sparkled black. And the scientist I happened to be with was an agricultural expert. And I said, well, tell me about that. They said it was 36% protein. Think about that. 36, I mean, the best organic wheat we get today, maybe 12% protein. That was 36%, the original. Hybridization did that. It was filled with essential fatty acids. That's what Dr. Cousins is speaking about. Not saturated fat or massive amounts of coconut oil, but every single original plant had oils in it. If that wasn't the fuel that humans should have, then why the heck do we teach at every medical school today the two things that propel energy within the body are sugars, which, by the way, you get sugar from lettuce, you don't need mangoes, and essential fatty acids. So I agree with this. Now, here's the caveat to this. This is my hypothesis, and I think I'm right on this, or I wouldn't say it. I think when you're younger, having high cholesterol makes you more prone to have cardiovascular concerns. I think when you get older, and how that's evidenced is not only by the Boston study, but 5 or 6 others I've read, is that centenarians tend to have high cholesterol levels, but they're not having heart attacks and strokes. And when you look at where these people are living, once again, go back, they're plant-based eaters that are incredibly active, that have strong community ties. So we know the longest living people in the world are plant-based eaters. We know that they're eating the original plants. They're not eating what you do and I do out of the health market, you know, that was shipped from California five weeks ago to us. So this is not only evidenced by the fact that modern science touches on this, but it's also something I've seen here. We put people back onto these healthy, whole-based diet, ground, no cooking, and people's memory comes back. They look different. They feel different. Their cognitive ability increases. Not at times, but most of the times. So yeah, I completely concur with what he's saying. He gave you some science there to think about. Now, it doesn't have any disrespect for the people singing the same mantra out of the same psalm book. I know they all like, you know, to follow one another. Ducklings do that. But the truth is, you got to stop being a duckling sometime. You got to learn that you have wings and fly. And we've got to get beyond that. And by the way, I'm willing, and I'm sure Gabriel is willing, to always change our story when we know more. So knowing more is the key. Inspiration, knowledge, and growth.
So thank you very much for the answer. So just a quick follow-up on that question. Someone like Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, who's also a clinician, and he's got a very strict diet, kind of going, away from oils and even excluding nuts and seeds, and other fats that I think are considered healthy fats by many of the population. Based on what you're saying, where do you think he gets it wrong?
I don't think he gets it wrong. I think as a man that came into this through the window of cardiovascular disease that he personally had, I think he gets a lot right. So you don't hear him talking about what I would talk about or Dr. Cousins. We have a larger menu, let's put it this way. And I know him well. We've been on lecture tours in Europe. His wife and he are just salt of the earth, wonderful people. He has a purple medal as a military man. He was a heroic American. I just have utter respect for him, his integrity, his genius, his attitude, et cetera, and how many lives he's helped who have heart attacks and strokes and potential heart attacks and strokes. So I think in that way, we sort of, when people have had heart attacks and strokes and the history of that, we sort of lean in that direction until they know they've gotten well. But again, it's not permanently. You've got to be on a prohibition from what nature has put into the garden for us to eat. They wouldn't be there if we shouldn't be eating those things.
Great. Thank you so much for that answer as well. So we've got some questions from the audience that we're going to turn to. Aaron, please state where you're from and ask your question.
Hi, I am from Massachusetts, and I have 2 questions. One, you mentioned that plant-based is the best diet for weight loss. I turned into plant-based about 5 years ago. 50% raw, but I still have a challenge with my belly fat. How would you recommend to get rid of the belly fat? And my second question, you spoke that you and many other speakers spoke about the advantages of the fasting. And there is a company that's doing fasting mimicking diet they call Prolon, which supposed to, that they give you some food that's supposed to be like you are in diet. I would like to know if you know about this company Prolon and what are your thoughts about this. Thank you so much.
I know about that. That was created in part with University of Southern California. And it's a powdered up vegetable drink that's, in my view, not necessary if you want to fast on green juices. You make out of fresh, raw juice. That would be my preference over than buying an expensive powder for it. And belly fat, one of the things we didn't focus in on today, I wish we had 10 hours, I would have done a 2-hour presentation on exercise. I explained that I do that's part of my lifestyle. It's as important as what I eat. So you're not doing exercise. I do every single day. And I also share this. It's funny, we never talked about this till last year. But every day, Dr. Cousins does 900 sit-ups. I do 900 sit-ups. It's really funny. We both came to that in our own way in different parts of the planet. But that's what you need to do, you know. And if you don't, and you get older, by the way, everyone's going to have a little belly flap. It's just going to happen to us because the cortisol levels and the hormones are going and all of that. So exercise was not an option 5 or 6 generations ago. It's either you starved or you exercised. It was called farming. So people generally didn't choose starving. So they went out every day and they lifted weight and they did aerobic exercise and they did stretching exercise and they maintained until the day they died at 90 or 100 years old, exercise practices. Today, less than 5% of the population in this country and around the developed world exercise adequately. Now think of what I'm saying to you. And we're not talking about a lot. If you look at the brilliant work of Dr. Cooper and others who are exercise scientists, we're going to tell you, just to maintain health, we're not talking about having great health, maintain health. You have to do 35 minutes, 5 days a week of aerobic. That means not lollygagging along. I mean, it's like sweating. I'm not really happy, but I'm doing this for 35 minutes. You need to weight lift 3 days a week for at least an hour and a half. And you need to hit different parts of the body. And once you're the ripe young age of 40, you have to do stretching every single day. And abdominal exercise, which I do, and anyone who understands this, you do every single day. One of the few things that you do on a daily basis.
Great. Thank you so much for that answer. Our next question is going to be from Monty. Monty, please state where you're from and ask your question.
Yes, I'm from Trenton, Ontario. Dr. Clement, what is the relationship? Do you know of any books that speaks about the relationship between food and distorted reality, or thought and the gene expression? With the advent of so much mental depression globally, do you know of what are the best books you know that addresses these two issues: thought and gene expression, and food and distorted reality?
Yeah. So what you are speaking about is the great work that's now being done on gastrointestinal health. And there's one called The Fuel. Somebody may help me with this one. But he was on The Real Truth About Health last year, I believe. This is the best book, current book, with the latest research and science on gastrointestinal bacteria, flora, and psychology, which we spoke about today. The serotonin receptor site, and as you say, distorted reality. And let me explain simply how that works. So when you have healthy and adequate amounts of bacteria in your intestine, it comes up the nervous system, up your spine, and right up to the brainstem. And up above the brainstem, you have this little switch called the serotonin receptor site. So it receives the serotonin from the intestinal tract, and if it gets adequate amount, it pushes the button on, and the happy juices flow. So if you're having a deceptive view of reality, malaise, negativity, depression, anxiety, or even worse, where they diagnose it as bipolar or schizophrenia, that function did not work. We think so, we know so. That function didn't work. So this is why you must start to look at this intestinal tract. Once again, I spoke to a young man who's in his last year of medical school in psychiatry. In the top medical school in Europe, they're not teaching them what I've just said to you. And it's not that I know something they don't know what they should know. That's the problem. I mean, I'm certainly not a psychiatrist, but I watch what happens here to people's psyches and their perception and their reality. Once we put them on plant-based diet, the side effect is mental clarity. The side effect is happiness. The side effect is clarity of a life that you want to live, and you're determined that you'll live it at your maximum best. But diet is everything about that, and there's massive data on that.
Thank you so much. Our next question is coming from Leia. Leia, please state where you're from and ask your question.
Hi, Dr. Clement. My name is Leia from Davie, Florida, and I had a couple questions. My daughter has high triglycerides. She's 5 years old, so the doctor is concerned about that, and she is on a plant-based diet for the most part. And the other question is, I was told that I should give her distilled water. What do you guys use to distill your water, or you buy distilled water in the plastic bottles from the store?
Well, let's start with the distillation of water, and you should buy a distiller. Number one, it's economically much better for you to buy a distiller. They're not that much. I've owned mine. I raised my 4 children, and Anna and I, on the same distiller since 1972. And so these things are hard to break, let's put it that way. And this way you have control over. You never want to put something in plastic because it leaches into it. And one of the biggest catastrophic problems we have on the planet today is plastics. I was speaking about this yesterday, that I went to a major conference on this last summer. Oceana, the largest ocean organization, was there. They said if we took all the plastic currently on the earth, it would cover every inch of the earth, including the tops of the ocean, the top of the Himalaya, by 1 to 1.5 inches of plastic. And it's not stopping, by the way. So we now know that by the year 2050, we'll have 5 times more plastic than we have now, because they're not recycling plastic. Now, I don't discourage you from recycling, continue to do it, but it's only 8% are really recycled, because it's less expensive by far to do it. So you don't want to buy plastic, you don't want to get plastic, you want to, this is why we moved the Hippocrates supplements over to glass. Now, tell me the symptoms your daughter's having.
Leia, go ahead and answer the doctor's question, please.
Sure. She was having some stomach pains. We went to Israel, and she started having very short stomach pains, and they would come on and off for the past 6 months. So then we did blood testing on her, and they found that she has 1.2 of lead in her blood, high triglycerides. Her A1C sugar is fine, a little bit high on cholesterol, and low magnesium, low vitamin D. So I started giving her vitamin D supplements, and she also grinds her teeth. So I'm going to start incorporating magnesium at nighttime, and we also don't vaccinate.
Okay, good, smart idea. So let's talk about this. Number one, is this a pediatric doctor or is it a normal doctor?
No.
Okay, so you have to understand that when you do a test on a child below 16, no less 5, there's radical number adjustments you have to make in your head. So again, periodically, I would test all of my children who are now in their 40s. And so when they were 2 and 5 and 10 years old, and you have to know as a pediatric doctor, or at least one who's worked significantly with children, to adjust those numbers. So they're not true numbers that you're getting. It's always, you can't give too much vitamin D if it's food-based. So I hope you're giving a life-give quality one that is made out of a vine and not heated above 110. Most vitamin D is highly processed and doesn't really ever enter into the human cell. So the quality, not just the name, the quality of what you're taking is paramount when it comes to this. I hope, go ahead. So the doctor who's not a pediatrician recommended what?
No, he is a pediatrician. He's a homeopathic pediatrician, and he recommended vitamin D with K3.
Okay, well, you would have to show it to me because I don't know what that's from, but how they derived it and how they processed it is everything about the story. Not just because it says X amount of vitamin D on it. or X amount of vitamin E or vitamin A. That doesn't matter. One of the many books you may want to save yourself a lot of pain in the future. I wrote Expose the Supplement Industry. It's called Supplements Exposed. You can also get on the Real Truth About Health archives by joining that super inexpensive $7 a month and basically see an hour and a half presentation I made on that. But the book is right here in your neighborhood, Supplements Exposed. So the first thing I would do with a child like that is see if they have H. pylori, because that's what it sounds like to me. And that's not even a blood test. That's where they make her blow into a little tube. Any competent doctor should know to do that, because that's what it sounds like more to me than anything else. If he did a scan on her, which if she was sick enough, you would do that on her. You would basically see she didn't have any anatomical problem. So when you rule that out, which is highly unlikely, then you realize it has to be a microbe that's in her intestinal tract. And then that could be dealt with one of two ways. Either you could bomb the immune system by putting an antibiotic in, which works. It kills the H. pylori. Or you could use a method we've been using here for many, many, many decades with an herbal tincture that's made out of a very serious company, Orthomolecular. But first find out if she has it. I mean, this is a test any doctor can do. They don't even have to be competent. Any doctor could do this one. And you just blow in it and it comes out, yes, she has it or she doesn't have an H. pylori.
All right, great. Thank you. And I think that brings us up to the end of our Q&A time. So thank you so much, Doctor, for that really amazing presentation. It was extremely informative. And I definitely, I'm going to be checking out some of these videos and the book that you just referenced, as supplements are a big important thing. So real quickly, we'd like for everyone else to be able to show their appreciation for you. I believe you've experienced the cacophony of thanks that when we open up the mics. So please open up the mics so everyone can say thank you. Thank you.
Unless we dip into our retirement, something we don't really have to mention.
Amazing.